Greetings and welcome back, fellow audio enthusiasts. It is I, Jason, your host of two-channel listening. I must start this video off with a disclaimer. Let me get this out of the way right now. This is not going to be a super in-depth, item by item, connection by connection review of the latest flagship offering from Peachtree. I'm not going to wax poetically and go into the merits of the GaN-FET technology modules used in the GaN400 amplifier. There's plenty of other reviewers who have done a great job of explaining why GaN-FET is an important breakthrough for Class D topologies and amplifications. No, what I want this to be is a conversation between you and me in my last 8 years in ownership of so many various Peachtree products. And it has to start this way. I was an early adopter of Class D topology. It started back when I bought that first Pioneer Elite SC35 AVR. Beautiful little audio video receiver, well, not little for what it was. But I will say, back then in 2011, it suffered the typical sins of that early Class D topology. It just didn't have the top-end dynamics that we can expect from today's amplifiers. Nevertheless, I knew what it was then, and I knew that it would grow to the future. Really, it's kind of an interesting dichotomy in that you would say it's an akin conversation to what's happening with internal combustion engines and electric motors for cars. The way of the typical traditional Class AB amplification is kind of going by the wayside for the preference of Class D efficiency. However, what I have here is 10 years, a decade of difference. This is Peachtree circa 2012 and Peachtree circa 2022. My own start with Peachtree happened around the 2015 era. I was all about USB DACs. Basically, everything I listened to started with my J River formats, and so I was all about using the USB inputs on any DAC that I could get. Back then, Peachtree was something of a pioneer in giving you the convenience of a built-in DAC with its very affordable integrated amplifiers. So I was really interested in the Peachtree value proposition. When I got my hands on a second-hand pair, that Novapre and that 220 amplifier, it was an interesting combination that has to be explained this way. The Novapre, at its time, it was released as a preamplifier with a built-in DAC Sabre chipset at $999. And I think that's really important because when it comes to their 220 amp, this thing already starts off with a pretty big sin. And let me just say that sin is that it has no balanced outs. Why would Peachtree make a preamplifier that's supposed to match its amplifier that has balanced ins? They must have really been trying to hit a particular price point with this preamplifier. Nevertheless, on its own merits, it's a good stable preamplifier. Good volume control, doesn't have any major omissions, doesn't have any major attributes to adding to the sonic picture. However, what I will say is back then, which was kind of a Peachtree theme, is they did add in this novelty, this tubed buffer stage in the DAC section. And let me tell you, it's nothing but a novelty. It did nothing to add to the actual performance. You're getting what you pay for. No more, no less. $1,000 preamplifier with a DAC, no more, no less. Let's leave it there. what I was interested in was this amplifier. I was really interested in the 220 amplifier. You've got a 220 watt per channel at 8 ohms, or a whopping 400 watts at 4 ohms. How's it doing that with Class D back then in 2012? Well, this amplifier was upfitted with the B&O Ice modules, the 125 ASX2s, not one, but two of those modules set up in mono configuration to give you that 400 watts per channel. As a matter of fact, you ASR acolytes, Ayre tested those same modules in a DIY amplifier back in 2019, and he was quite pleased with the performance of those ICE modules in that off-the-shelf DIY amplifier. It outperformed almost 3/4 of the as-tested amplifiers in his system at that time, or what had been borrowed at that time. Go back to that review in 2019 of those ICE modules. You will be quite pleased of what Ayre came up with his specifications. So I'm not going to talk about that. What I'm going to tell you my experience is circa 2015, I happened to have an Audio Research 302 tri-path type technology. That was a $4,500 amplifier with my Zoo Audio system at that time. When I put this Peachtree in that system, it was kind of a wake-up call for me. What it cost me to acquire that Audio Research, and the only thing that really set that 300.2 apart from this 220 amplifier was that the Audio Research did have a little bit more to offer in that mid-range, a little bit more openness. I couldn't even tell you if the soundstage was any better, bigger, or more detailed. It was too close to call. Just that mid-range is what set the ARC amp apart from this Peachtree. And from that moment forward, it was cemented in my mind, the value proposition of what Peachtree can bring to the hi-fi world. So I was impressed. Now, let me say this. As far as the Nova goes, it is not a very good DAC. I have to be brutally honest. Every single time I've connected a USB input to it or the SPDIF from any type of streamer, it's flat, it's lifeless, and it's veiled. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go so far as to say why I pictured it. If I add my little $200 Arylic S50 Pro Plus DAC preamp, I just put the SPDIF into this, and you have a really awesome $1,100 kit. Okay? As a matter of fact, I'm going to say it this way. In 220, in the year 2022, you can't make this amplifier off the shelf for $600. Right now, Hi-Fi Shark has a few of these 220 amps that went for about $600 to $700 based on how well it's been taken care of. Does it have the original box, etc., etc., etc. For $600, folks, you can't build the 220 amplifier today. Those ICE modules alone, depending on where you source them, I looked, they're anywhere from $360 to $450. You've got balanced ins. You still have these nice 5-way binding posts. You have to add a filter to the power section. And then don't kid yourselves. You're not going to get this nice sculpted casing and build this amp for less than $850. There's just no way. So for those of you on a very tight budget, you want a super flexible, high power amplifier, the 220 is where you should be starting. Let me say this. This 220 amplifier loves tube preamps. The 2 times I've owned it, Quicksilver, ModRite, Audio Research, Balanced Audio Technologies, Musical Paradise, it responds so well to tube preamplifiers. Real tube preamplifiers. Sorry, guys. And that's what I have to say. That's why this has made the second round into my system. When I found this again for the price and the condition with the boxes, I just knew it would make a great base level in my system. And like I remember, that 220 is just an awesome amplifier for its price, especially what you can get on the secondhand market. Let's transition to the Flagship, the latest and greatest from Peachtree Audio. Now, let me say this. This kit does cost quite a bit more than what this did at its retail dollars. However, I first have to say that I want to be pragmatic with my dialogue when describing this, when talking about what this means to me. And speaking of pragmatism, I committed a sin before the gods of tube audio. I did trade in my 15-year-old balanced audio technology tube combination to the music room to get this very brand new fresh set, finished in ebony mocha. Just, you know, the evolution of Peachtree and how they continue to refine this, not just the internals, but the external looks. It's just a beautiful kit in person, even nicer looking in person, especially this top venting compared to these old black slats. So they're thoughtful and you're spending more money, but believe me, this time around, you're getting a lot more for your money, even compared to the 2012 kit. The biggest sin that they fixed is there's now a fully balanced preamplifier with balanced outs. So I can connect my balanced outs into the GaN400. For you newer audio enthusiasts, those of you on budgets, let me just tell you, if you can do balanced cables, just do it. What you're getting is you're already getting noise rejection with your signal line, and you're already going to gain 6 dB in that signal. It's a much more stable platform. Yes, there's great amplifiers and preamplifiers out there that are only single-ended, but if you can go fully balanced, go fully balanced. You will hear the difference immediately. The other major thing that they improved upon with this DAC Pre is, with 10 years difference, it now has the Sabre chipset, an 8-channel Sabre chipset, so that it can get, you know, that fully balanced topology in the preamp. And basically with the signal processing to the balanced amplifier, it has a higher dynamic range, and it's just smoother in so many ways. It's not just 50% better than the Novapre. I can finally use that speed of connection again. So while I no longer use the USB connections, I can use the speed from my streamers, plug it right into the Pre, and let me tell you, it's as good, if not better, than my iFi DAC here, my Zen Signature 1, and it's definitely better than the speed input of my NAD Masters M10 integrated amplifier. No questions asked. The GaN400. In this combination, what does it mean to me? What I have to say next is not to be boastful. It's not to be a braggart. It is a critical declarative statement for how this video ends. Let me tell you, I've owned Mark Levinson. I've owned Audio Research. I've owned several components from Balance Audio Technologies. I've owned Jeff Rowland. I've owned Lugsman. You know, just those few brands, those really awesome brands at unawesome members only prices. You know, it has its merits, but it has its detractors. But let me tell you, I hear the Lugsman mid-range warmth from this kit. I hear that Mark Levinson ceiling to floor, wall to wall, expansive soundstage. I hear that silky smooth power delivery of the Jeff Rowland amplifier. I hear that awesome, open, articulate vocals, the delicacy of the balanced audio technology tube components that I've owned. And lastly, I hear that specialty audio research upper treble detail with this kit. Yes, this did cost me 3.5 times more to acquire versus this, but it didn't matter what speakers I connected to it. It goes this way. It didn't matter with the Novus N6Ts. It doesn't matter with the Harbeth. It doesn't matter with the Harbeth HL7ES3XDs or the ridiculously sumptuous Vienna Acoustics Mozart Grand SEs. Let me just tell you, Danny got those speakers wrong. He doesn't understand Vienna Acoustics. That'll be later. This is an important getting off the merry-go-round for me as a reviewer, folks. For enjoying my audio, for enjoying music. It can do Deep Purple, A Child in Time from the live album. It can give you any subtlety you want from John Moriarty. I'm telling you, folks, grab your Metallica S&M2 with the San Francisco Symphony. This is a classical rock and roller kit right here. Heavens to Murgatroyd. Exit stage left for this reviewer. Okay, wait, time out. If I remember correctly, I didn't say one negative attribute of this kit yet, did I? Well, let me put it to you this way. If there's one thing that kind of is annoying at this price point, something that I forgave with the Nova 150 integrated amplifier, at this price, you should be able to know where your volume's set at. I'm not a fan at this price of the disappearing LED volume indication. I would prefer a static indicator that would give me a quick visual of where I'm at with my volume, because let's face it, with where I listen at, there's times where certain albums and certain songs will have a 8 dB dynamic range shift instantaneously. That can be quite startling without knowing where that volume is track to track. So that's one thing I hope they fix in the future. But honestly, that is really the only complaint I can lodge at a $3,500 setup, because at the end of the day, this has tighter bass control versus my balanced audio technology equipment that is vastly more expensive than this setup. It is much more forgiving over hour after hour after hour versus the audio research kits that I've had. It is much more dynamic than the Jeff Rowland M112 amplifier that I've had. As far as the Lugsman and the balanced audio technologies, I can leave this sucker on all day long, day after day, and I'm not burning through expensive tubes or causing myself to sweat in my room. It's stable at 2.5 ohms. You have 400 watts on tap at any given moment. There's no speaker I can bring into this room that is going to require that amount of juice. Guys, gals, this checks the box. This checks all the boxes for me. I have found my amp preamp combination. I'm off the merry-go-round in this aspect. The only thing I did not mention, well, my pinnacle equipment was that $8,000 Class A CP700 preamplifier matched to the Mark Levinson number 331 amplifier. You know what those cost, even on the used market. This brings the fight to their door. And I'm going to work on finding the right streamer for this setup. And I'm going to have musical bliss from this point forward. That's how I feel about it. And let me talk to you about musical bliss, why I brought that up. You kind of know my style by now. When it comes to speakers, I like to start with the lower level with a particular manufacturer. If I really like that speaker, I'm going to go upstream. As a matter of fact, those darn Mozart Grand SEs are getting me into all kinds of trouble, financially and just where I stand with the Harbeths. Let me tell you, Danny does not understand the Vienna acoustics design topology or preposition. I've got a lot to say about my time with these Mozart SEs, and you're really going to want to tune in for what's in those boxes, because wow. Until then, I really appreciate you folks. It's been one heck of a year for me. Lots of changes. Thank you for your support. Please tap that glowing vacuum tube in the bottom corner there. Please tap that bell. You want to continue to see me doing this, just give me those thumbs up. That's what I'm asking from y'all. And until then, have another week of enjoying your favorite music as I will be. Blessings to all of you. Take care.